I'm mispronouncing your
Good
name.
morning, good afternoon.
Good morning, good
My name is
afternoon,
Eric.
or good evening. Today is August 11th, 2022. So today I will be talking about chemoreceptions. So with chemoreception, there are 5 special senses. We have smell, taste, hearing, equilibrium, and we also have vision. So they are all in the head region. They all have like special receptors that distinguish the 5 of those special senses. Smell and taste are both considered to be chemoreceptors, and with unicellular bacteria, they have receptors that sense the environment. With primitive animals, they have receptors that locate food and also locate mates. That's why oftentimes you see dogs when they pee in certain areas, other dogs can smell it and sense there are other dogs that was in that area. It's some form of communication between the animals, also within like in the wilderness and like the forest and things like that. But there are deers, things of that nature. They also pee to mark their territory, so other deers are able to tell who's mate and different things of that nature. Also, smell and taste are both forms of chemoreceptors, and they are one of the oldest senses from a evolutionary perspective. They are very prevalent in our life today. So, with authentication, authentication that's the ability to distinguish different odors. So being able to tell a smell from a peach from a strawberry, being able to tell the smell of pizza from chicken. Like often the time we don't realize the essential role of senses plays in our everyday lives. So just think about if you have a head cold or injured something and it affects your ability to smell. Think back to 2022 when COVID-19 first came about, and a lot of people was complaining about losing their taste and smell. It was messing with the olfactory, so a lot of people wasn't able to smell because of what the COVID-19 virus was doing, the mechanism action of what it was doing to the body and the control it was taking over the body. Back to like the olfactory bulbs, which is like the extension of the forebrain that receives the inputs from the primary olfactory neurons. And these neurons are very essential with informing us of what's going on with our body and what's going wrong. So we have to pay close attention of what's going on, because it all relates back to each other. So we have the olfactory neurons, which relate to the cranial nerve 1, which also relate to the olfactory bulb, which relates to the olfactory tract, and the olfactory cortex, which goes to the cerebral cortex or the limbic system. So it kind of varies based off what is going on. So that was pretty much like me explaining what's going on within the pathway of our bodies. So the olfactory epithelium lining of the nasal cavity with a special sensory neuron called olfactory sensory neurons. So these are the neurons that are on like the inside layer of the cavity. Also, we have something called the VNO, which is a very nasal organ, which is a behavioral response to sexual signals. And back when I was talking about the cranial sensory neurons and all of that, which is also explained here on this figure, this diagram, you can see exactly what I was talking about, how the olfactory neurons relate to the cranial nerve 1, also relate to the olfactory bulb, the olfactory tract, the olfactory cortex, and also the cerebral cortex with the also communicate with the lymphatic system. Olfactory neurons in the olfactory epithelium lives only about 2 months. So that means they change every 2 months. So you're not going to have the same lining that you had in February because it's past 2 months. They are replaced by new neurons whose axons must find their way to the olfactory bulb. Um, olfactory bulb, which is right here. So, which is the extension that relates that information back and forth to each other. Um, so, as you can see, how important it is the communication with the cells from part to part of the pathway to ensure that we are receiving the right information to receive the smell. This arrangement might seem a little simple, but it's very complex because there's a lot of things that's going on to actually process what's going on in the olfactory bulb, which just go down through the pathway to ensure everything else is being in the right way. So next we are going to talk about taste buds. A lot of people know about taste. This is like one of our very known senses. So when you bite into an apple, you tasted something. So it is closely linked to olfaction. They work hand to hand. That's when a lot of people was losing their taste. They was also losing their smell when they was diagnosed with COVID-19. So this shows the communication between the two are very essential. We can like kind of call this like the taste of food is actually the aroma. It's also you know if you have a bad cold based off if you're not able to smell because of the many receptor types that are linked to the taste. They work hand to hand. And with taste buds, as you can see here on the slide, there are 4 mitochondrial distinguished cell types. We have, it's supposed to be Roman numerals, but I wasn't able to put Roman numerals on the slide. So Roman numeral 1, Roman numeral 2, Roman numeral 3, Roman numeral 4 is also known as the basal cells. So for Roman numeral cell 1, which is like a glia, they are support cells. And Roman numeral 2 cells are cells and receptor cells. And Roman numeral 3 are presynaptic cells. So think about presynaptic and synaptic. So Roman numeral 3 are those type of cells. Roman numeral 4, which are also known as basal cells, are the taste receptor cells. So these are the cells that are actually having a taste. And within taste, there are five different types of taste that are distinguished between each other. So we have the bitter taste, which is a G protein. We also have sour, which is an ion channel. We have sweet, which is a G protein. We have umami, which is also a G protein. And we have salty, which is an ion channel. These are very, very essential and work with many amino acids, glutase, and mealtides. So each of the 5 are recognized sensations that are associated with physiological processes. So it depends. Like for example, sour taste is triggered by the presence of hydrogen, and salt is triggered by the presence of Na+, which is sodium. So just think about the concentrations that are within the foods that make us able to distinguish the two. And these taste pathways include many different things. So we have like the taste buds, which is a cluster on the tongue, and that requires saliva and mucus for the food to be dissolved within. So we are able to actually taste those foods by the chemical signals released by the primary sensory neurons. So within the taste buds, for each taste bud is composed of taste cells joined nearly on the apical surface with tight junctions. Remember back to Unit 1 when we talked about tight junctions. So we have type 1 support cells, which then we have receptor cells, which are type 2. And then so the taste transduction goes something like ligaments activate the taste cells, various intracellular pathways are activated, the calcium signals in the cytoplasm trigger exocytes, or they also trigger ATP formation, which also have neurotransmitter or ATP is released, and the primary sensor fires an action potential that are sent to the brain to be like, hey brain, I'm tasting something that's sweet, or hey brain, I'm tasting something that's bitter. So you have to think about the different substances and how it must be dissolved in the saliva and mucus of the mouth. And the dissolved taste ligaments then interact with these different proteins on the epithelial membrane, which could be a receptor or also could be a channel. It kind of varies. And right here you can kind of see how the tongue and the different nerves, and because like some of the tongue is able to have more taste buds than the other portions of the tongue, which are innervated by different nerves. And then it shows you how everything go back to the cortex. So you can see they have the presynaptics and we have the synaptics, so different neurons and all that are shown in this diagram. And that's it today. So today we discussed the chemoreceptions with taste and smell. Hope you guys enjoy.